This is the Mile High Five podcast with Carl Jensen and Doug Cunnington. We have authentic conversations about the journey to FI, health, happiness, and some very odd tangents. We interview FI experts, side hustlers, people on their way to FI, and those who have reached the other side. Join us every week, and if you want the show notes and links and all that other stuff, head over to milehighfi.com.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Mile High Fi podcast. I am Carl Jensen with my co-host.
I am Doug Cunnington.
Doug, what is happening?
Not too much, man. I got a couple things going on today. I got to run some errands. I think I'm going to head to the liquor store, get some whiskey. We like whiskey. We don't drink it too often, but we got like a coupon for, I don't know, there's like a whiskey sale. So probably get some single malt scotch kind of thing. So again, we don't have it too often. And then the Sam's is right there. So I'll pop over there and grab some things. But we also have the Costco. The meat's a little cheaper. So I'm going to head over to Costco too. So a lot of kind of domestic things. I do all the shopping around.
Nice. Okay. Have you ever had it's a whiskey company in Salida. It is our mutual friend, Boulder Steve, who will probably get on the show at some point. It is his neighbor. He owns a company, whiskey place in Salida, which I can't remember the name. So the story kind of sucks. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about, Doug?
Yeah, you know,
I'm looking it up now.
I know what you're, yeah, shout out to Boulder Steve, right? But I don't know the whiskey company, but it's a Colorado company, yeah?
Yeah, it is Woods High Mountain Whiskey.
Okay. Are you, do you like it? What's your impression?
Yeah, I might have it a couple times a year in small doses. I should learn how to taste it, I guess, because people will taste it and they'll be like, oh my God, this is trash, or this is bad, or this is really great. I'm like, I don't know. It all kind of tastes the exact same to me.
It tastes like fire.
Yeah. Smooth. The more you have, the better it tastes.
Yeah. So I didn't get into whiskey and stuff until we were going to head up to Louisville, Kentucky, right? So bourbon country. And I was like, we're going to go to a bourbon bar with some of our friends. And, you know, I just want to be able to like have some drinks and like understand what I'm drinking, and a good one and a bad one, or at least like know the differences between, you know, some different bourbons and whiskeys and such. So started drinking a little bit more then, and like many things, the more you drink, you get used to the flavors. So now I have come to appreciate whiskeys and different kind of whiskeys. The thing is, I haven't tried Colorado whiskeys or spirits in quite some time, but I remember in the, say, early aughts or so, when some of the different distilleries were popping up in Colorado, people were like, it's so good. And I would try it. And I was like, this does not taste good. And the thing is, like the bourbons or the single malt scotches that I'm going to get today, they're like 15 year, they're 18 year. And the thing is, if a distillery just opens up, right, they're like 2 years old, it's like it's green stuff. Like it's going to taste like moonshine. It's not that good. And I, you know, since those days, I was like, I don't trust people that tell me that this young whiskey tastes really great. And I'm an asshole. So I developed a palate where I could like taste, and I'm like, that does not taste that good. So I haven't tried it in a long time, because I'm just like, I know this stuff is good and I'm unsure about that. So if I'm going to spend $80 on a bottle, I'm like, I don't want to waste it on some shitty. I don't know I never had that whiskey. The guy, the Woods or whatever, could be great. Maybe I should check it out.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. They always seem to have an excuse. We were in Wyoming and they're like, we went to some whiskey place, which I won't name, but they're like, yeah, we've only been open for a year or two, and we're already producing our first bottles, and it's because the climate here is different and it ages much faster or some shit. They're probably blowing smoke up asses. I don't know enough to call them out either.
No. And then it's the blending, and, you know, it mellows out, blah, blah, blah. So I got to give it a shot. And if there's any, distilleries out there that want to hook us up with some whiskey, I'll check it out. Yeah. I'll give it a fair shot. But a lot of times it's too young. It's too young. So What's the best whiskey you ever had? You said you're not super into it, but like, have you had somewhere you're like, I could tell a difference?
Yeah, not really. It all kind of tastes the same. The Dryland, the local place, had some kind of thing. I don't even know if they called it whiskey, but it was some 120 proof thing. And I thought that was, I don't know if the flavor was good, but it was smooth and went down easy. And
okay.
Yeah, just based on that, it seemed easy drinking. And maybe that means it's even worse. I have no clue, but it tasted good to me.
And it could have been like the barrel strength. So for other whiskeys, we have a topic today, by the way, folks. But for other like whiskeys, it comes out of the barrel, it's a higher proof, like 120 proof or whatever, and then they'll like dilute it down with like water, I think, or other, I think it's just water.
Okay,
I'm not 100% sure, but to get it to the right, 80 proof or whatever it is that they need it to be, to sell and all that stuff. So, other distilleries will have like the 120 proof barrel version, and it's like, there's a little more of an edge because there's like more alcohol in there. There's like 40% more alcohol, or something like that. Anyway, good stuff. I'm going to get some whiskey today. What's going on with you? Do you got any plans coming up?
We actually have relatives in town, so we are going to we had a frozen turkey in the freezer. I'm not even sure why, but we're going to have like a typical Thanksgiving dinner, like cranberry stuffing and all that kind of stuff, which I really enjoy. So super looking forward to that.
That's cool. I remember talking to Mindy like last fall, and I was like, we should do a Thanksgiving like later in the spring. So she's actually doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it today, I guess.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, shit. And I don't think you can buy turkeys except around Thanksgiving, right? Like you can't walk into a store now and buy one, can you?
I think so. Yeah. You just have to, there's not as many. They don't have them like in the big cases, but you can get turkeys.
Okay. Well, we should still do that when we get back from Hawaii, when there's a cooler day, when we don't have to heat up the house with an oven. We'll go for it.
I can smoke it. I can smoke the turkey in my smoker here. I've been firing up the old Weber Smoky Mountain.
Yeah. So one quick final question. I was also going to go to the liquor store and find a good beer to pair with the turkey. What would your recommendation be?
Oh, man. Good question. Let me think for a second. I really like Belgian beers and Saisons. I would potentially go with like a Saison DuPont. Something like that.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, that's a really nice one. And our friend Jake actually brought back beer from, was it Trillium in Boston? He brought back a Saison from there. I mean, you can't get it here, I don't think, but it reminded me a lot of Saison DuPont.
Okay.
And that would be good. It's not too aggressive, but it has some good flavor. It should go okay with like a poultry, I don't know how you're going to season it, but there's potentially some herbs and spices that traditionally you would put on a turkey that could play well with the spice of the Saison.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So you had an idea today. You were thinking of me while you were working out, which is cool.
I was.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, let's do it. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I sprung this up on Doug like an hour ago. So this is, I know our recordings are usually really, really thoughtful and professional sounding and put together. But if this one isn't quite so much, that's why you can blame me for it. So I guess I'll tell a little bit of a story. I was reading the YouTube comments, which is probably something most people should never do. And I think I talked about this commenter a couple episodes ago. She is not nice. She is a troll, but good for her because I think most trolls are men. So good for her for breaking the gender barrier. I think her name was like Raccoon Mom 69 or something like that. So maybe she isn't a female. Maybe it's a male posing as a female. That's probably actually what it is. But anyway, she was like, Doug, I feel so bad for you that you have to record with Carl. Like him and Mindy suck. Like her podcast sucks and Carl sucks. Like, oh man, that's pretty rough. I don't mind getting criticism, but when they just say things like that, it kind of hurt me a little bit. But then I started thinking, like, why is this person hurting me? They could be typing this out from it's probably some 16-year-old dude from their mom's basement or some shit like that. Why would you let a random person borrow you And then I started thinking, I'm like, well, Doug wouldn't react like this. And I was thinking about the conversation we had, I think a week or two ago, how when you say people insult you, you thank them for it.
Yeah.
You turn around and make it a compliment. Do you want to explain that real quick?
Yeah, and I think it kind of started as maybe a bit of a joke. I think like my wife Elizabeth would say, she wasn't saying anything mean, but she would say something like, is that the shirt you're going to wear? Something, not exactly that, but like, is that the shirt you're going to wear? And I'm like, oh yeah, like, thanks for noticing. Appreciate it. And then just like treat it as a positive thing. So I started to apply it to a lot more things. So if a comment is unclear, I will still treat it as compliment, right? So I'm like, I'll take anything, even an insult. And I'm like, thanks. Thanks for noticing. Like, you took time out of your day to say something to me, even if it was negative. So that said, if you want to leave any reviews out there on iTunes, or if you want to comment, even if it's negative, that's cool. You took some time out of your day to tell us what you thought. Nice. So yeah, I don't know. And then at some point I was like, yeah, I'm going to treat everything like it's a compliment, even if it's clearly an insult.
Okay. So the real long-term, the introduction to this show is I'm going to try to get a little bit into Doug's head. And Stoicism comes to mind. I don't know if you would consider yourself a Stoic, but we'll talk about that. Another thing you've said, which I frequently think about, is you say, I'm not sensitive. This doesn't bother me or whatever. Have you always been that way? And if so, would you consider yourself a Stoic? Have you studied Stoicism? As I guess we've got the Daily Stoic right here on the table. So
yeah, and then I have like the Daily Stoic Journal. So I think for a pretty long time, at least, for a lot of my adult life, I have been like not sensitive. So probably, a portion of it is like being emotionally unavailable, and it's actually an issue. So, that's the reality of it. But at the same time, it's just like, we have a choice, right? You could take everything personally, and we probably know people that they take like the news personally. They take like comments they hear like on the radio, or just they take everything personally, even if it is clearly not directed at them. They are making it an issue for no reason. So we have a choice to like make things personal or not. And generally, especially like with you, Carl, or like other friends of mine, like generally you're telling me something to help me. You're not intentionally like trying to hurt my feelings or something. So I shouldn't be sensitive about it. I want to know more information, especially if it's like coming externally, because then maybe that could help me out in the future, right? I have to filter it. Sometimes you have bad ideas, Carl. So I have to filter these things. But overall, like I have a choice. Like I could take it personally and make it I could be defensive, which I am defensive sometimes, especially like if you ask Elizabeth. Yeah, I will take things personally often with her, but on a grander scale, and everyone's like personal relationships are different, right? But on a grander scale, I will try to make sure like I take the information. I try to like be detached from my emotional mind or whatever, so I can look at it and try to logically do something with it or not. Your other question, do I consider myself a Stoic? I think at one point I was like really trying to be more Stoic, but at some point, like many things that I do, I overconsume. So I really like Ryan Holiday too, and I have the Daily Stoic, and I have the Daily Stoic Journal, which I bought when it came out, and I actually gave it to my brother-in-law too. So I like bought a couple copies for myself, and then I gave him some same deal for Christmas. I don't know if he did anything with it. Shout out to Matt. But at some point I like listened to too many podcasts, and I was inundated with all this Stoic bullshit. And I was like, I've had enough. I think I generally have the point, which all this is not very Stoic, right? What I'm saying right now. But I'm like, I've had enough, and I don't want to hear like all this stuff. I don't need like a daily email fucking reminding me. Like I get enough emails. Like I don't need more reminders on this stuff. I was trying to work through the journal with the written, handwritten stuff. So I would say I don't really consider myself Stoic currently, but when you asked me today, I was like, oh yeah, and you read a couple definitions. I'm like, yeah, I think probably.
Okay. So I want to unpack something you said a moment ago, because I've actually seen this in action. You said you interpret all criticism the same, no matter if it's eloquently put and they're trying to be nice about it, or if they're trying to be a total asshole. You interpret it kind of the same, right? That's kind of what you said.
Yep, that is the goal. I try to do my best. So keep that in mind. I mean, this is not an ideal situation by any means, but yeah, that's what I try to do.
Okay. So we both remember after we interviewed Pete, there was one email that showed up in our inbox, and most people were positive, but this person was not. And he was not nice about it. He's like, yeah, I heard your Pete interview, and well, I didn't expect Tim Ferriss. I didn't expect you to be as horrible as you were. Like, this was total, like, the guy was going off. It was
mean.
Yeah, he was mean. He was not happy. And I wasn't going to respond. I think I forwarded it to you because I check it a little bit more than you. And I wasn't going to do anything. And then you said, do you mind if I respond? I'm like, no, go for it. And you said something like, how could we have been better? Or what should we have asked him? And then after that, he became like a normal person, like this transformation. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I was a little bit harsh. Here's what I really wanted to hear. And here's what I would have asked if I could be doing it. So I'm not sure why he felt the need to open with being so harsh, but it was pretty interesting to see you react just without emotion and be nice about it and try to see if there's anything valuable to get out of it. And then you opened up and was a normal, better adjusted person. Remember that?
Yeah. And it was, so I had two main thoughts when I got the email, and I was like, we prepared a lot for that one. We talked about it for a while. And I was like, shit, did we do a bad job? Like, I remember we had a good time. Pete had a good time. And usually those two things, like, that will make an interview good, even if the topic areas are not interesting to the person. So I thought, did we screw this up? And then the other thing is, like, I want to find out. So I asked I kept it short. I think recently we talked about, emails that I send sometimes, right? So I kept it short, and I was like, I can quickly understand if he replies back. I'll quickly understand if this guy has a point or if he's full of shit. He was probably having a bad day or whatever, right? And the simple question was like, what would you have done? What could we have done better, right? Or two parts, right? And he just had a different opinion. He wanted us to ask the normal questions. Like, actually, Mindy and Scott interviewed Pete like around the same time, and they asked like sort of the typical FI type questions, but we weren't interested in that. We didn't care. We didn't want to ask those same questions. That said, Mindy and Scott's interview was pretty good. I listened to it, and it was like, oh, it's cool to get a little update on what's going on in that topic area, but it's not what we wanted to talk to Pete about. So when you saw the email, yeah, I think you were like, I'm just not going to respond. After hearing me answer, like, any thoughts on, like, if we get other emails like that? Like, how would you start doing that?
I thought you handled it real well. And actually, when I got the nasty YouTube comment, I did respond. I'm like, well, how could I be better? And they never responded. And that kind of puts the pressure back on them. And maybe that's what it did to that person, made him rethink his initial volley.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I've gotten some that were even worse, where they're literally like, fuck you, I hate you and stuff. And I'm like, you signed up for the email list. Like, you asked to get the email, so you could like just unsubscribe. Like, why are you wasting my time and yours? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But that people that do that, they're probably having a bad day. And I need to thank Ramit, because he, in some of the emails that he sent out, or maybe social media or something, but he says that he'll reply back something like, hey, what's going on? And just like see how they reply back. And usually people will completely fold. They're like, I'm really sorry. They think it's going to a black hole and no one reads the email.
Yeah.
And they have issues, right? If someone's going to say, all those bad things for no reason. There's something going on.
Yep.
And, ignoring it is totally fine. But because I saw Ramit doing this stuff, I was like, I'll engage a little bit. It's somewhat amusing to me. It could actually help the person out if they're like, oh, someone is on the other side. They're listening to whatever. And I'm like, hey, do you have any issues going on or whatever? Kind of like that.
Yeah. I heard a great quote. It went, hurt people, which might not make a lot of sense. But another way to put that is, hurt people often hurt other people. They take their pain out and try to release it on others. And I do the same thing, actually, whenever I get a nasty email. I'm like, hey, it sounds like you might be going through a tough time. Is there anything I can help you out with? And I never get a response after that, but yeah, at least I've done my part. I think the worst insult I got is someone called me, they said like you, like the letter U, the letter R, like cockmaster or something like that. And I don't even know what that means. I mean, that could be a compliment, but I don't think it was intended as a compliment.
Well, and that's how you get to flip your brain, Carl. You say, thank you. Yeah. I've been working so hard at being a cockmaster my whole life.
I am the
cockmaster. Yeah, make a t-shirt, man. You're like, hey, I thought actually you're a bit of an artist. I've seen some of the t-shirts you made. You should sketch something up and like, yes. Or I'm thinking like a Cornholio type character. We're both Beavis and Butthead fans. I think this is what would happen if Beavis and Butthead grew up and started a podcast. That's us.
I think so. Theirs might be a little bit more intelligent than ours, but yeah, probably pretty similar. Oh my God. Okay, if we ever get our t-shirt store set up, we'll have that on there. All right. So
I
zero
am Cockmaster.
Yeah, you are Cockmaster. Okay. Nice. One other thing, back to a serious note, I was listening to Jocko recently, and he was talking about this, and he made the point is if someone insults you and it hurts you, you have to consider that it might be true. Why else would you internalize it and think about it like that? So maybe, well, again, maybe they didn't deliver it the right way. Maybe that's an opportunity for you to work on something, and they've pointed out something to you that you might not have realized.
Yes. And that's something, YouTube comments can be pretty treacherous. There's a lot of garbage in there. I don't pay too much attention, but I do look, and occasionally, just like Jocko said, and the point you're making, Carl, when there's like the nugget of truth in there, those are the ones you're like most resistant to. So as I mentioned earlier, and we emphasize, like I try to detach and I try to look at the core of what it is. So even if some criticism, some negative criticism comes in, I try to shift it into something constructive, especially if I resist and react negatively. I'm like, okay, is there something I could fix? And there have been times where I'm like, oh, like I wanted to like be defensive and tell the person why they were wrong. But then I, wait a little bit, maybe I come back in a day and I'm like, you're right. I can fix this in future episodes or whatever, future videos or something like that. And those are the hardest ones because we want to like say the person's wrong, but it's like, they're right. They're 100% right. And I have to do something with it. So yeah, that's pretty tough. But how do you react when someone is right on the money and you're being defensive?
I'm getting better at it, but I used to be more defensive. And actually, I wish very few people will give you, even in the most polite way, most people will not give you criticism. They'll be like the Midwesternized, oh yeah, you're doing great, when maybe you didn't. I'd much rather have someone say, hopefully in an eloquent way, that, hey, I think you should be working on this, or I saw you do this, and I think there might be some issues there. What can I help you with? So I've gotten better. I used to be more defensive, I guess. But yeah, if you're super defensive, I think you have some issues with yourself too. You're probably insecure and you've got some shit to work on. So just no matter, regardless of what they said, if you jump to a point of defense, you have some work to do on yourself right there.
Mm-hmm. One thing that, I did a little research to try to prepare, at least like printed out an outline here. But do you consider yourself like a stressed person or anxious, or do you have anxiety or anything like that?
I used to, not so much anymore.
Okay. And was that because like your work has changed, or just you've gotten away from it?
There's been different levels of it, but the most recent one is actually fairly recent. I don't like when my life, I don't know, there might be a term for this, like boxcar, when you have one event right after the other and you're rushing from thing to thing. I hate that. So if I have to pick up my kid at 3, I used to leave like at 2:50. I'd be late, have to wait in this big long line. A much better way to do it, I found, is to leave at 2:20 and bring a book with, or just I park the car and go for a walk. I actually get stopped by school security all the time because they think I'm some creeper like walking around the school. I know the security people now, and they let me do it, but life used to be so packed with shit that would give me anxiety and stress, and it might not even be primary anxiety. It's not anxiety over the task itself. It's just a secondary mental effect of being so busy that you don't have any time for yourself, and that just stresses me out on some deep level. But now that that's gone, I feel a lot better, and I feel like the weight has been lifted. But pretty recently, like the past couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I noticed with you, and I hate that. It's just like being too busy. I don't know the exact word, but you're just like, you have too much shit in your schedule, and it's like you're always going to be late because, not you specifically, but like, a person will be late if you like make your schedule based on like the best case scenario of like travel time or whatever. Because whatever you think it is, it's not going to be the best case scenario. You're going to get stopped at a light. There's going to be some slower people in front of you. Funny thing, I was driving just in our neighborhood here, and I was going kind of slow. I'm usually not in a hurry. I was going kind of slow. It's like 6 a.m. I was going to go grab a coffee, right? So I'm driving around, and someone was like speeding up to the roundabout. So I like kind of was slow because I didn't know if they were going to blow through. Anyway, so I'm in there. They end up behind me, and I'm like driving slow through a pretty big parking lot at a strip mall kind of area. And eventually I park. I go into Lowe's like I do later in the day with Georgie, the dog. And one of the employees was like, "Oh, did I see you in the red truck today?" "Yeah, that's me. Did you see Georgie too?" She was like, "Yeah, you almost made me late for work." And I'm like, if you're running that close, like, it's not my fault you're almost late for work. Like, fucking leave earlier. I was driving like whatever, 5 miles an hour in the parking lot like you're supposed to, you know? But I do feel slightly bad. I need to get those student driver magnets like you have, Carl. Put it all over my truck so people are a little more patient with me. They're like, "Oh, this guy's doing his best. Fucking 40-year-old, student driver, we'll cut him some slack." But anyway, the point is, that person should just leave work a little bit, or leave to get to work a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2 points. One thing I really enjoy doing now is driving slow. I don't do it when there's someone behind me, but often I'll drive like 5 or 10 under the speed limit, like on the highway. At 75, I'll just go like 70 or 65. It feels pretty good. I don't know why, if it's a causation or correlation thing that I now have the luxury of time, but I really enjoy that. But to back up a second, I feel like I hijacked your question. You asked me if I had anxiety. Were you going to make some other point there, or?
Yeah, well, and I was just thinking like, does the ideas of Stoicism like help relieve stress or anxiety? Because, some people maybe have anxiety about things which they cannot control, right? And I've let go a lot of that stuff, and I just don't think about it. It's just, I'm like, I can't control it. I'll just handle what I have some influence over, and not worry about the other stuff. Super simple example. I have a friend who he checks the weather like all the time for stuff that's way out in the future, like a week or two, right? It's just not accurate. And shout out to our friend Kristen, the meteorologist. They do a great job out there, but it's a little inaccurate. And like, the person stresses over like future plans. It's like, you're going to do the thing that you're planning on anyway. It's going to rain or not. You literally can't control it. Yes, look at the weather like a day or two before so that like, hey, we shouldn't go hiking today. It's going to storm. Or do you need to bring an umbrella or bring the right gear or whatever? But like, at some point, it's just too much. And you can't control the weather. You're just going to deal with whatever's going to.
Yeah, that's totally true. You think of all the angst in the country now and over presidents and stuff like that. And we don't talk about politics, so we're definitely not going to talk about that. But it cracks me up how much that bothers people, because no matter who's president, it probably doesn't have that much effect on your daily life. I know Pete has said this too. If you really care, like, look at local policy and vote for local politicians, because that's going to have a direct effect on your day-to-day life. Where a national one, despite what they do and how much you might hate whatever they're doing, it's really not going to affect you that much.
Yep. Agree.
Yeah. One other thing I think about is that 4,000 Weeks book. He talks about how insignificant we are. And I think this may or may not be a Stoic principle. So tell me if it is or not. But once you acknowledge that, like, nothing we're doing is really going to matter. I mean, nothing we do today is going to matter anytime soon. And the best, greatest thing we do in life is going to be forgotten probably soon after our death, or maybe even during our life. So if you acknowledge that you're insignificant, then who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. Find your happiness today. And if you're nothing, then there's nothing that people can throw at you that should be able to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. Another great book. I don't know specifically. Like I said, I'm kind of out of the Stoic mindset specifically, but it does make some sense. And I do think about, like, our insignificance generally. And like you mentioned, even the best thing that we do is probably going to be forgotten. Even people we know might not even know that we did the thing that was so great, right? And then in whatever, a few years after we die, like, hardly anyone's going to remember us. So, yeah, fairly nihilistic, I think. I referenced that in some previous episode, I think, and it's somewhat dark, I think, if you look at it in a certain light, but also it's freeing.
Yes.
And it's like, like, do the best each day that you can, and then, move forward, try to get a little better. Don't make the same dumb mistakes or whatever. But yeah, 4,000 weeks.
Yeah. And to build on that, if you look at happiness research, it doesn't come from external circumstances. So if you're looking for external validation, or on the flip side, if you let things upset you, that's bad. And that's not where that's not where real happiness comes from. The inner versus outer scorecard.
And yeah, I'm curious for you, Carl, how much do you look for, like, the external validation? And I'll buy you some time here. So one thing that I've realized in the last, I don't know, even just a couple weeks or so. So I have this other YouTube channel. It's just under my name, Doug Cunnington. And I haven't been looking at analytics as much. And I'm like, oh, it's a little more fun. And the thing is, when you look at analytics, or, maybe your blog traffic or your social media, like, we don't fuck around with social media either. It's just not my thing. I don't care. The more time I spend in it, I'm like, I see it's more of a waste of time. And you're looking for the external validation from some tech company that's trying to, like, get you hooked on using their app, which is a complete waste of time. So, like, when I start peeling it back, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about the analytics. Like, especially if we're trying to create something, we're talking about writing a book, right? We need to, like, shut out all this noise and, like, focus on this thing that we're looking at. Yes, we'll need to get other opinions, but, like, from analytics, it's just not interesting to me anymore. And I think the more I pull away from it, like, the more fulfilling, like, the work that I'm doing, or the creative products that I'm generating and delivering, they're going to be better because I'm not looking at analytics and catering to, like, really pandering to, like, the YouTube algorithm or whatever. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's probably the most important life advice you can give. I talk about the Tim Urban blog post all the time, why you should stop caring what other people think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you think about the people who really do great things in life, like Pete, he's a pretty big deal. He doesn't give a shit what the hell anyone else thinks. He does what he thinks and says what he thinks, and that's pretty much it. And I think that's how probably most of the great minds throughout history have worked. they're not going to seek that validation. They're going to have a strong voice, and whether it's a good voice or bad voice, they're going to change some shit. And once you start looking for opinions on other people, you're just going to water yourself down and be some shittier, lesser version of yourself.
And the caveat, right, is let's say we have some idea, Carl, right? We could go to like our trusted friends, go to Pete, a couple other people that we know at HQ, get their opinion, and maybe we have like 5 opinions, right? Versus from people we know personally in our network that we trust, versus going to Twitter, typing something out, hey, what do you guys think of this? And then you get like 1,000 people giving you just random opinions, and you don't even know who they are. They're just random people on Twitter. We're not really made to take that kind of input for stuff like that, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, my quick thought is half the people on Twitter could be bots too. You're not even communicating with a person. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's a big difference there. One is your motivation for doing it. Are you broadcasting it on Twitter to look to get some attention or reaffirm your bias? Or are you looking for true value to your idea, which is when you have to talk to someone like Pete or someone who will give you honest feedback and tell you when you're wrong? I don't know if I answered your question or even if I understood it.
No, there was no real questions. Like, what are your thoughts on that? So I don't know. But I mean, the thing is, like, you can get good information, and there's probably going to be a point where because you have a pretty big Twitter following, right?
I think there's like 21,000 people. I don't know if that's big or not.
I think so. I think I have like 3,000. I don't do anything over there. But the point is, we'll probably post some stuff to get input for the book because you do have quite a following. But, as a Stoic, I would say, detach. Don't be so prideful about your big following over there. Cockmaster 69 or whatever. Was that this episode where we're talking about that? Or yeah. Otherwise, that's a weird thing to say.
No, Doug, that was actually 3 episodes ago. I didn't think you were going to say your nickname for me in public, but it's fine. It's out there now.
Yeah. I think that should be, maybe it's some kind of superhero, Cockmaster. And then there's a sidekick. And it's like something scrotum. I don't know. I think we scrotum something.
And then they could have villains based on other genitalia.
Yeah.
The ass monster.
Yeah. We'll have to workshop this a little bit. I'm not sure.
Maybe book 2 could be a graphic comic based on the the genital superheroes.
There'll be it's like the Marvel world. There'll be a whole different thing. I'm not a big fan of the superhero movies, are you?
I like some of the more unusual ones. I don't like them in general. I thought they did a good job with like what were the last 2? Like the Infinity War. I don't even know what they're called. So I guess I'm not a big fan either. But there were like 2 final ones with which wrapped it up where they killed the dude, and I thought those were good.
Spoiler alert, Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. What's a good superhero movie? I don't know. I kind of like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Have you seen those at all? Yeah, this discussion.
I've seen a couple of them, but yeah, I don't. Those are the more recent ones.
Yeah,
I think I saw a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fine. They're all just so over the top, and I'm just like, it's the end of the world again. Are we doing this? I thought that was the last movie. I just get a little confused,
and it's pretty much all the same shit, just regurgitated over and over and over.
Yeah. It's like the Taco Bell menu. It's just like, this is just the tortilla folded a different way with the same stuff inside, right?
Or nacho fries are back. Shit, they were gone like for only a week. Why are they back already?
So Carl, you had this idea for quizzing me on like my perhaps Stoic tendencies. Are you looking to do more like Stoic studying? Are there certain things where you're like, I want to do that? Because I took it as a compliment and I was like, Carl wants to be like me. That's what I thought.
I do. I like to observe people. I like to try to find what I think are the best qualities or maybe deficiencies that I have relative to them and figure out what they're doing and try to become a better person. So that's the whole reason I asked you. But I think I will do a little bit more study. I've read a lot about them, but you've got this daily Stoic book, and I was signed up for that email too. But I think similar to you, I stopped because I got sick of seeing it every day. And a lot of it's kind of, they're saying the same stuff over and over again, looking for maybe the same message to be delivered a different way so it resonates with someone else. But
Yeah.
do you have any other advice on stuff to read or if I want to learn more or...
No, I mean,
actions
you
to
could
take?
borrow that book to flip through it. It's like 366 meditations on wisdom, something, perseverance, and the art of living. And I think, honestly, you read 30 days of it, you kind of get the point. I mean, at some level, it is just very repetitive, and you get the punchline, and it's like applying it to little pieces of your day. But I don't know. I mean, it kind of reinvigorated me to like pick up the journal again, because it's been a few years since I've like gone through it, and I think I made it through a few months here. Actually, maybe about a third of it, so I could pick it up, and it's kind of nice. There's like a morning reflection, evening reflection. There's usually just a page or so, but I think it can be pretty helpful. As far as tips, I don't know, other than, I mean, if you're thinking about it a little bit more each day, then I think you'll probably find areas where you're like, you know what, I can let that thing that annoyed me slide. It's not that big of a deal.
Do you think the Ramit advice, which I do, I actually do it in traffic too, like the other day someone cut me off. It was one of those situations where there's like 500 cars because the right lane is going away and then one person goes in the right lane to bypass all those, and I happen to be the one, like, he almost hit me because he was trying to get over. But what I tell myself in those situations is, maybe he's got to get somewhere really fast. Maybe his wife is in the hospital or some stuff like that. Do you think it's a crutch to think like that, or do you think that's actually healthy? To make excuses for other people for their shitty behavior?
Yeah. Well, I think, if it keeps you from getting upset, it's a good thing. I should think about that, because usually... you've mentioned that a couple times, and I try to think that, but I always end up thinking, that guy's a fucking asshole. That's usually what I think. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. But I think if it's a crutch, I think it's a good crutch, because it's just like, you know what? It's more important to that person than it is to me. That said, like, it's annoying when that kind of stuff happens, or like, this is what I hate. You're at the light. You're the second person in line, right? It's red, and it's a very short light. We have several lights in our vicinity, super short. Only like 2-3 cars can make it through, right?
They drive me nuts.
And the person doesn't go because they're looking at their phone. That's so. And it's like, pay attention, man. This is not safe. And then you're screwing all these other folks behind you.
Yeah. So
I have an issue with people that are not self-aware, and they don't realize that they're screwing things up for people behind them. I do realize the irony of me driving slow and then screwing up, making the person almost late for work, but I'm driving the speed limit. I'm driving safely,
Yeah. People on phones drive me nuts. I was actually on Ken Pratt in front of Lowe's, and there was some guy going 20 miles an hour in front of me. I'm like, dude, what is going on here? I drive slow, but not this slow. I think the speed limit is like 45 or 55. Yeah. And he is literally going 20. So I finally got around this person. That's hard too, because everyone in back he was trying to get around. So I finally get up to him, and he's like watching a movie on like an iPad or something, driving on the road. Like, the fuck? Where are the cops when you need them? This is what they should be going after.
That's crazy. There was a wreck there yesterday, right in front. A car flipped over. Like in the morning. Yeah. It's nuts.
That could. Yeah. It's better to drive less. I've got one more thought on this, and then I'll shut up. I was reading about stress, and it talked about the long-term physical effects of just being stressed out a lot. Like, you might have hypertension and all these, and maybe even other more severe disease states just as a result of having stress. So what I came to is it's really dumb for someone to, especially an anonymous person on the internet, why am I letting this person stress me out and perhaps leading to a lower lifespan just because of some stupid comment? Why am I should not let this stress me out in the first place. I should just ignore it for no other reason than I'm going to be healthier by not being stressed out. And so I'm choosing not to be stressed, but I think I needed that excuse to make that choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it makes total sense. And my stress level from, when I used to commute to work and I was trying to climb the corporate ladder and all that stuff. I mean, my stress level is very low now. And, you mentioned to me, and I mean, this whole episode is based on, I think, me being like kind of chilled out most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Or like someone is coming at us aggressively via email. And I'm like, hey, bud, what'd you really think? Is there what can we do for you to do a better job next time? Or taking an insult as a compliment, right? So generally chilled out. And someone recently also mentioned like, hey, Doug, like I see you're pretty like not in a rush. You're calm most of the time. So maybe I've really internalized a lot of this stuff and like my stress level is so low and I'm getting like plenty of rest now. It took a lot of work. I mean, this is like at least a decade of me like working on for myself and like, there's stress from that too. Like just making the business work and then like tapering down things that are stressful, like maybe reading comments or replying to every email, like cutting things out that I'm like, this is not working for me at all. I'll just try something else. I don't have a good final thought, but if you could lower your stress, it's much better. You sleep better. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, this is yet another idea for our How to Be Lazy book, because I think lazy people are definitely less stressed than like type A super productive people. So laziness will lead to longer life.
It will. Yeah. And I mean, like you can still get a lot done. I mean, one of the things that I do get comments on the other YouTube channel and my other business, it's just like, dude, how do you put out so much content? This is ridiculous. Because we were doing 2 shows per week. I was doing 2 shows on the other, plus a live stream, plus sending out emails and all this other stuff. It was like 10 to 15 hours a week of work. Like I am not busy. I am not that busy. And shout out to, not that Derek Sivers listens to this show, but he did a few interviews in the last few weeks here. And it rekindled my interest in Derek Sivers. And I remember listening to some interviews in maybe like 2014, 2015 with him. And he was like, yeah, I'm not that busy. People will email him, say, hey, can we meet up? You must be really busy. I know you have a busy schedule. It's like, no, I have plenty of time. Yeah, let's go meet up. Let's go for a hike or whatever. So I encourage people to not be busy. It's good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that was a good final thought. Should we mention the Buy Me a Coffee site?
Yeah. So we don't run ads. Although Carl and I are testing a DIY vasectomy kit. We're kind of putting it together on our own, trying to source the materials. Not sure if it's going to make it out as a product, but we'll keep you posted. If that doesn't work out, you can help support the show with Buy Me a Coffee. So we're not doing ads, but we do need some money to produce the show. So Carl, you post some things in there. It's kind of extra content. Do you remember the last thing you sent out to the crew?
Yeah, I think I talked about how FI means something different to me now, how when I started, it was all about money. And I discovered this Mr. Money Mustache guy who told me I could be financially independent, how to do it, and how to escape from the job that I disliked. And now it's morphed into something else. Now that I'm there, the thing I really get out of FI is all the great friends in the community we have, the fun people that we get to go for hikes with and bounce ideas off of. So I'm really appreciative of it. Some things come into your life for a short period of time and then leave because they're no longer necessary or you've moved on. But I appreciate the evolution I've gone through with the FIRE movement. And I think it's probably always going to be part of my life. I feel like kind of a loser. Like most of my friends are from the FIRE space. I still have some other friends that aren't assimilated yet that I knew before I discovered all this shit. But yeah, I've got some other ideas for more stuff to send out as well.
Cool. Yeah. So you could support us with like a one-time donation if you want, or you could sign up for like a monthly membership. And those are the best because we can kind of rely on it and you get extra content. The thing is, we're going to keep producing the show. And if you don't donate, that's fine. You're still going to get the show. But if you could support us, that's great. One thing we did with the money, so we went to Economy. Carl got these awesome t-shirts, right? Neither one of us are wearing them. Funny enough. But basically we just like gave away like 30 t-shirts or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So like you get cool stuff like that. We're using it to give back plus, produce the show. So check it out. We'll put a link in the description and we appreciate all the people that do support the show. So Carl, it's been pretty fun. And I think we can go deeper. I bet there's some aspects where it's like Stoicism plus phi. There must be some cool overlap where we can like go a little deeper. I don't know. I'll look into it, but I enjoyed talking about it.
Yeah, we should get Michael Robinson on the show. What is his blog? Common Dream, I think. It might be .org. But yeah, more conversations in the future.
Yeah, right on. Okay, man. We'll see you soon.
Cool. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the show. That was the Mile High 5 podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington, the Balder host, and Carl Jensen is the cool, sexy one. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer, this show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. Carl and I are just 2 guys with microphones that sit in my basement and talk. So we'll catch y'all next week. Carl, we're going to start working on writing a book, and I'm pretty pumped about it. We have a lot of like preparation to do, but one cool thing, we're planning on doing a kind of a writer's retreat. So excuse for us to go out to the mountains, kind of get out of our normal atmosphere and stuff like that. So number 1, I wanted to double check. We're doing 3 nights, right? Is that what we said?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. I'm going to book something like today, awesome. And then you could always cancel within 24 hours. So I'll send it to you, make sure the dates are good, all that kind of shit. But one thing that I know for myself is, especially this type of work of writing, I know I'll probably only be able to write about 4 good hours a day, something like that, max. And it's kind of funny because back in corporate jobs, you do 8 hours a day or 12. Or I had a manager who was like, yeah, I'm working like 80-hour weeks. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like either you're sitting around a lot, like you might be on calls for 80 hours, but you're definitely not thinking about work for 80 hours. That's another story for a different time. But my question to you is, for writing that type of focus and what we're going to be doing, how much time do you think you'll work per day? Like, do you have a greater capacity, or is like 4 hours of good writing about all you want to do?
Yeah, I think 4 hours sounds like a pretty good number, but even worse than you, I need lots of breaks in between with creativity. Sometimes I can't just sit there and write. Sometimes I'll have to write, I'll have to think about something, and then I'll have to go for a walk and like plant the seed and then go for a walk and see where my brain takes it to, or have a conversation with you. I actually, when we were recording yesterday, I had like 2 or 3 chapter ideas. So I don't think I can even just sit there and write for that amount of time. I might sit there and write for 20 minutes and then go for a walk. or listen to a song while I go for a walk and then come back and write some more. So I'll probably be writing throughout the course of a day, but over a very long period of time, like maybe get some shit done at 6 a.m. and then still be working on it at 10 with a lot of free time in between.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Excuse me. Yep. I'm pretty much the same way. Like I can do a little bit longer, like maybe a 90-minute chunk. But about 50 minutes to an hour is kind of ideal. Get up, walk around, take a break, play guitar for a minute. Like you said, kind of early in the morning too is like my brain's really fresh, a lot of good ideas, maybe a quick walk and then like a 20-30 minute walk, then work for a little while and then another break, a longer hike for a couple hours. We can go separate, we can go together. There's plenty of places to hike, which is a cool thing. And then I'll probably be done doing any of that kind of stuff by lunchtime, something like that. So front part of the day is really good. Maybe some editing and stuff like that later, but I figure, we'll go outside and like whatever, hike or take a couple hours off in the afternoon to do something. When you say 10, did you mean 10 in the morning or 10 at night?
Yeah, I meant starting pretty early, but then maybe I'll have some ideas late at night and be writing those down.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. That'll be good. I think, there's only so many hours, like you could focus and then you need to let your brain rest and do some other stuff. So.
Yeah, I think it's good to at least, when I talk to you, when I'm probing you, Doug, I'm actually, a lot of times I'm riffing ideas and I come up with a lot more shit, or you help me open up stuff. So I see us writing a little bit and then me maybe talking about what I wrote and hearing what you have to think. And then that might send me in another direction or have me add a bunch of shit to what I've already done. And we'll have a beer like in the middle of the day because we can.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. How about weed? Are we going to do a lot of weed up there?
That just puts me to sleep. I've tried edibles. I guess when you let me try, I think that one was a little bit better, but I only tried it the one time. But usually when I do edibles, I'm knocked out.
Yeah. I haven't been partaking. I need to get in touch with JD, our friend JD Roth. He and I did a couple episodes together and he was like, man, I'm abstaining for a little bit and it's been good. And I stopped right around, like when he told me, we had a couple conversations, couple off the record, and I was like, shit, I'm going to stop. And I haven't had any since last year, I think.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, and I was going to say, I think it was partially a crutch to like maybe help me sleep a little bit better. And I sleep awesome now because of the chili pepper.
Nice.
I think that's the thing that made the biggest difference. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it. We'll book the stuff. We'll spend some time out in the mountains and then maybe a secondary trip too. We'll see what we can carve out in the fall too.
Yeah, that's cool. We were actually supposed to go for a hike, and the main reason it's shitty weather anyway, but I canceled on you because I want to work on the book. I've got all these random notes written down, and I want to start bringing it together into something more cohesive. So that's what I'll be working on after I leave here.
Nice.